Morning, everyone. Welcome to Paris, for those coming from far. I'm Amina Boubendir. I'm leading the research and standardization activities within Airbus Defence and Space. I would like, in this short keynote, to highlight some challenges, some perspectives on the 6G and non-terrestrial networks called NTN, and the perspective that we have behind this to target the direct-to-device from the satellite. And this goes with the objective to have global coverage and seamless mobility. So, because maybe you might wonder why Airbus is really interested in 6G and why do we work on 6G. Of course, Airbus is known for the aircrafts, civil aircrafts, but the communication part is structural in all flying platforms. So these are pillars, of course, that we have the ground connectivity, the maritime connectivity, but everything off the ground that is air, stratosphere, or space in every orbit is clearly at the heart of our activities. Satellite for communications, for civil communications, governmental, military, also Earth observation and space exploration, all these need communication. On the aero connectivity, of course, civil but also military aircrafts need to communicate before moving and while moving, so all of them rely on ground and space connectivity for operational and entertainment needs. The unmanned aerial solutions, known as drones or HAPS, are also platforms that provide connectivity either as relay or as having antennas on board. Helicopters, with their mission-critical and usually very low altitude of flying and operation, need to rely on very reliable means of communications. Same goes for the public safety and security in urban areas, but also outside urban areas where first responders need to respond, to act, and also in maritime, for maritime connectivity, offshore, ship-to-ship, ship-to-coast, all kind of ship communications off coast. From there, when we look at all these platforms, when we put ourselves in a 6G non-terrestrial perspective or outlook, we also see a convergence of technologies. There is a need to have different technologies from the ground, from the space communications, coming together to answer the same needs that are getting higher requirements, not only in terms of bandwidth, but also in terms of security, etc. And these are relying on two worlds that have been separate until now. So we have the telco world, where we have IP, mature IP, all the generations for mobile networks. We have specifications that are well implemented, and interoperability between the countries. Roaming works very well. So the telco world has embraced already interoperability and standardization, and also started the digitalization. Of course, now it sounds obvious when we talk about cloud and IT and networks coming together. It's almost has been, as we say in French. So we somehow started in the telco world to embrace the digitalization wave. While in the aerospace world, with all the flying or non-terrestrial platforms for connectivity or for other purposes, we are still so much into silo world and with proprietary solutions. And the costs, the cycles for developing, the cycles for deploying, the cycle for embracing new solutions, it is very long. And also the life cycle of every platform is quite long. So we can talk of 30 years for a satellite, and for LEO from 10 to 15 years. While for a generation of mobile networks, we see a generation every 10 years. So these are inherent challenges to both worlds, and if we want to bring them together, of course, it is a journey. It doesn't come in 5 years as we can develop just a new solution. It's really different sectors, different technologies merging together. We have the satellite networks, the terrestrial networks, the mobile, but also the Wi-Fi, fiber, all connectivity on the ground, but also airborne networks, which also can play a role in private networks, but also still don't have a mature regulation yet. So these are sectors and sectors of technology don't have the same maturity in terms of regulation, interoperability, and adoption by the market. So going into the need of global connectivity, global coverage, extending the coverage that we already have in urban areas by satellite connectivity, then how can we go into this interconnection? In research, there is a lot of work already in research in Europe, as I know it, but also internationally. There's a strong initiative called HexaX in Europe that is starting its second phase, that is giving directions for Europe on how we should define 6G, and it starts with KPIs, but also KVIs. So what is the value added for society and for our daily life? The perspective is 2030. But it relies a lot on the standardization. So 2030, we assume that 6G will be mature in specification in 3GPP and has already integrated the three aspects. Why do we think so? If we look at the timeline and how standardization and partnerships also are playing a role in defining 6G NTN and direct-to-device, in 3GPP, we talk about NTN, so we cover satellites, HAPS, flying platforms, balloons, or stratospheric planes, and of course, traditional mobile networks. Release 16 and 17 have already introduced NTN and targeted the direct-to-handheld or direct-to-device, and has completed everything related to IoT. So IoT from space, from satellite, has already been specified. And it relies on what we call GEO or non-NGSO, geostationary satellites that are transparent. So we don't have any G node B on board of the satellite. This is passed. Now we're finishing release 18, has been published, and it was the integration of NTN with 5G, with more backhauling and hybrid access. Release 19, the main difference is the regenerative payload. So we do target LEO satellites with full G node B on board of the satellite in order to define a new specification for this integration. And it's going on. We're also already pushing use cases, and we're already talking about 6G and 3GPP. And I cannot not mention MSSA, which is the Mobile Satellite Services Association, which is really active in defining the direct-to-device specifications in existing bands, so mainly L and S bands, but also further. So MSSA and 3GPP should work together in this direction, and not to mention all the partnerships that we need. So 6G NTN and direct devices, so if we're not just providing a new system or specifying a new system, we're also thinking of how this is answering needs from customers or from use cases that we have identified. And from Airbus perspective, and we relate to, if maybe you recognize the wheel diagram from the IMT 2030, we think the global coverage of seamless mobility is really at the crossroads of those pillars. So mainly for us, the aero connectivity is number one. Like, we cannot continue building and selling aircraft without ensuring the connectivity that goes with it. And because planes go everywhere on Earth, they do need to roam in a seamless way. Today, they rely mainly on limited satellite communications for operational needs and limited in-cabin connectivity, in-flight connectivity. But we would like to target more use cases and air-to-ground, so relying on the mobile network when the airplane is on an urban area, for example. Same goes for helicopters and stratospheric planes. They all need to onboard new features for to have this global coverage. Satellite to device is also a strong need, mainly from mission-critical communication stakeholders. They today rely on different devices, SATCOM devices, but also traditional 3GPP devices, and they would like to rely on the same devices wherever they go. And this should become possible thanks to the direct-to-device. The agriculture or oil and gas or offshore platforms also call strongly for enhanced satellite communications and connectivity to the shore. We know in Europe, for example, the connected cars already have regulation for PNT, position, navigation, and timing. There are SIM cards onboarded in each car in Europe that need to call emergency in case of accident, and this is a regulation. These SIM cards, if we achieve the direct-to-device, can also connect to the satellite, so enhanced PNT plus any emergency calls or infotainment for the cars, not only in urban areas, of course, but also rural areas. Of course, maritime connectivity may seem obvious because we're away from any terrestrial mobile networks. They call strongly for satellite connectivity, and maybe looking at the geo situations, we have NATO strongly believing in how they can reuse 5G for new use cases. So linking to also we're active also in influencing standardization, as I said, but also the IMT20 use cases. And when we look at what all we need to do, of course, we need to collaborate more. It's making those words coming together, but in a seamless way. Today, they still are disconnected, but we do need more collaboration. The ecosystems, basically, the telco ecosystem, traditional, the GAFAM, all the digital players, but also the satellite players. The awareness is rising, but the synergies are not yet there. So it's also a call from my side to collaborate. So please reach out if you're interested. And thanks for listening.